Very good evening to you, dear viewers. The waiting is over. Welcome to the pressure point that we are having this very evening, Thursday, 22nd of July 2021. My name is Noel and we are broadcasting live from the headquarters of Rhino TV here at Ochiba Coastal Town within Arua City. And joining us for this discussion tonight, we do have two senior education officers that we know very well in our city who will be discussing and sharing more on the primary leaving examinations that we have just actually observed and seen. The Ministry of Education and Sports released this last Friday, but the discussions are going on around the cities, around the country, and also in the media. The discussions are going. How did your school perform? How did your region perform? And what does this mean for the region and the country as a whole is a big discussion that we'll be discussing in this pressure point edition tonight. Well, joining us in the studio, I do have Mr. Rhino, who is a senior education officer with Arua District Local Government. Mr. Drani, it's my pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Noel, and good evening, viewers.
And joining him as well for this discussion, I do have Mr. Raymond Ombere, who is the City Education Officer. You're most welcome to the studios of Rhino TV.
Thank you very much, Noel, and good evening, viewers.
Definitely, we will be discussing on the primary leaving examinations. Well, last week on Friday, we witnessed the Minister for Education and Sports, that is Right Honorable Janet Kataha Museveni, released the results. And now, out of these, we witnessed about 53% of the total number of those that sat were female, and about 47 of those that sat were boys in the just released results. Now, the performance is another thing that we will talk about, but let's quickly delve into the discussion and get opinions of the guests that I do have here on their perceptions or how they received the news of the release of the results. Let me start with the City Education Officer, Mr. Raymond. Last Friday, the results were released, and a lot of discussion, as mentioned earlier on, has been going on around, in the media and also on different platforms about the performance of our region. What do you make of the results that were released on Friday?
Yeah, thank you very much, Noel, and once again, good evening, listener and viewer. Now I'll forget to add my name or BIE. I want to thank the management of this TV for inviting us, and I want to say, given the circumstances under which our children sat for the 2020 primary leaving examination, I would like to use this opportunity to very sincerely congratulate the P7 candidates, their teachers, their parents, and all the stakeholders for the effort that they put to make sure that we were able to see some positive results out of this PLE. You will recall that this PLE was done under a pandemic, and we had almost lost hope. Whereas in the other parts of this country, the children were enjoying the luxury of attending to lessons via Zoom, attending to lessons via radio, attending to lessons via TV. This was very limited to our children in this part of the country. And the only available option, which we initially had, was the radio, which could penetrate and reach the child deep there in Odramachako or Riki or somewhere in Lazeb. But again, given the fact that the majority of our people do not own radios, we also still had a number of our children disadvantaged. But given the circumstances, I would like to say, yes, this was a result which came was worth the effort. Majority of this effort was put by the teachers during the little time. I want to tell you viewers that when the children in P4 were given a chance to come back, P5, P6, P7, the teachers had a big challenge. The children, majority of the children were in square one. Majority had forgotten what they had learned. And the teachers were just beginning to gather them. And you can see within the shortest possible time, they were able to gather these candidates and enable them to sit. So I want to thank you, the teachers. I want to thank the parents, because the majority of you took active role in making sure that you supported your learner, your child, in making sure he or she gets what he has done. I want to appeal to you, we should not harass children for the results that we have seen, so that we avoid the tragedy that we saw on social media yesterday in Hoima. Given the circumstance, this was the best they could get. We should support them to make sure that they proceed with the education. Okay. Those who are unfortunate and could not get the marks, which requires them to further their education to the next level, either in the secondary schools, we should find alternative higher education for them, like skilling, giving them practical skills and what have you, so that they're able to fit.
All right, interesting views there, but I'll be able to get back to you, Mr. Raymond, on some of the issues that you just mentioned. Let's quickly cross over to Mr. Ronald. Is that the same view that you actually hold with Mr. Raymond on the just released PLE examinations that we are talking about?
Affirmative. What the Principal Education Officer, Royal City, has just narrated is exactly what I would have said. Knowing very well that with effect from March last year, 2020, schools were closed and children stayed almost home up to September. When schools were, actually October, when schools were open for candidate classes, we had lost hope. We thought that this was going to be a dead year. But when the scientists advised the president and consulted the ministries, the different stakeholders, and the schools were reopened, particularly for the candidate classes and those who were in tertiary institutions, finalists, we were a bit skeptical. But quickly, we realized that the institutions reorganized themselves and they received these children. And the children, having almost lost hope, also picked up their pieces and assembled themselves in the classrooms. And eventually we realized, amidst the scare of COVID-19, learning was taking place. What actually, on the contrary, I realized was, even when hope was almost lost, when the teacher people rates were reduced for the candidate classes, I thought that within the, actually it was not even lost. From October, the examination was set this year. There was actually like about 5 months. I knew if teachers, if the school management, if the stakeholders actually impressed through education, during that short time, the children would even do much better, because there was that contact, close contact, teacher-pupil relationship, and also much time, I'm sure, was given, because people are not moving up and down, and therefore I was very optimistic about the PLE results. Having said that, I want to congratulate the candidates who sat this. By the time the results were released and I saw the results of our Greater Arua, including Arua Central, Ayiv Division, Vura County, Tarago District, and I was like, wow, God, you did not forget about us. Because honestly, when the government said children should continue to learn using other media, like television, like radios, like using Zoom, this was too luxurious for our context as West Nile people, because first of all, we don't have electricity to every homestead. There are families who don't actually even afford to buy a dry cell And here radio was supposed to be the only means of communication for these learners when they were still locked down. And therefore, when the performance has come as it is today, we should just say, these children have really done their part, the teachers have done their part, the parents have done their part, and whatever has come on our plate is what we must appreciate. And I want to urge that when times have come for this category of children to join the next level of education, the schools will not be very rigid in admitting them.
Okay, interesting one there. I definitely want to pick on that when I get back to you. And Mr. Raymond, you had mentioned that we have every reason to celebrate these results. And one of your reasons you gave for that was the situations under which the students or the pupils sat for these examinations. I believe the situations were not any different also for the other students in other parts of the country. But if you look at the performance, we are not very far from the previous results that we had, even when we never had COVID-19. What would be your take on that?
Actually, if you look at the trend, generally, if we were to compare 2019 to 2020, we will see there was a downward trend in terms of performance. Yes, it is true, this situation affected the whole country. But I am telling you, as a country, we are not at the same level of development. For example, there was a statistics done by UCC, Uganda Communications Commission. It found out that the TV penetration in northern part of Uganda, particularly West Nile, was just 1%. And there is a lot of good lessons, good teaching going on UBC.
But we had the lessons going on the radios.
Yes.
How come?
The other time when we also went on radios, there was I was one of that. I was a guest
on one radio station.
Very many radio stations. On one of the radio stations, the MC1 chairman of a certain village rang us, and they gave a very interesting revelation.
What was the revelation?
When we were there, the MC1 chairman said, you know, when you people started drumming up the alarm for radio lessons, I went to do statistics in my village. And he gave us a scenario that in his village, there were only 18 homesteads out of 108 that had radios. This was one village where the MC1 chairman was very vigilant.
Which village was that?
It was somewhere in Brazil. Very vigilant. That out of 108 homesteads in his village, only 18 homesteads had radio sets.
But how far with the radio procurements? This can also
the best people should have answered that should have been the MPs. Because I think this was sorted out in Parliament. Because the MPs thought this was not a necessity. But you see, this is part of the tragedy we have as a country. That many of us do not appreciate the reality on the ground. We are sometimes at the surface up there, and we fail to see exactly what our people go through. The truth is, when you go to the rural households, the other day people are mocking the people of West Nile for demanding for radios, for demanding for homes. But they don't know that sometimes in those homes, it's very difficult to get 10,000 shillings. So that should have helped us. Nevertheless, as I said, if we were to also put it into perspective, for example, you would have noticed that in this PLE, part of the success stories that we had was the number of candidates that sat increased. And part of the increase was that the children who were in P6 were registered to sit P7. And to see the result the way it was also spoke a lot about if our children are attended to, are taught. that if in our school system, if there is teaching and learning taking place, our children can excel.
Now, Mr. Raymond,
Yes.
the picture you have painted is that one of the reasons why the performance in our district or in the city has been like this is COVID.
Yes.
And you actually also said that why the schools, say in the central, have been able to do much better than us is because they have access to many facilities that the children were able to learn. Now, given the city itself, we still do have schools that have excelled much more better than the others. Where is the disparity?
Yeah, you see the disparities, if we were to go for those disparities there, I mean, for example, as was the case in the national...
Even schools in Telegu, by the way, have been able to give first grade.
First grade, that's true.
So,
yeah,
these are schools that are in that category you are listing.
That is true. Ronald had just said part of the reason was that, you know, if we adhere to the standard operating procedure to the end, to the dot, COVID presented an opportunity for us to improve on our learning outcomes. Because the pupil classroom ratio, which also translated into pupil-teacher ratio, was that one teacher, on average, was now teaching only 25 children. What this meant that the teacher could know exactly the challenges the children he's teaching are facing, and should be able to appropriately respond to those challenges, which should have helped the learner to perform better.
Are you suggesting?
But along the way, you know, whereas for purposes of allowing the schools to reopen, in the initial stages, the schools adhered to that ratio. Along the way, as we started introducing more levels, the teachers became overwhelmed. And they were tempted, and that's why in Downer country, and luckily enough for us here, we didn't experience, in a number of schools in Down country, the children contracted COVID. Unfortunately, they brought COVID to their parents, and some of the parents were unlucky, and they succumbed. Because along the way, people now started going back to the basics, where we could be having 40, 50 children in class, which was very unfortunate. But otherwise, as Ronald said, if we maintained that pupil-teacher ratio of one teacher attending to 25 children, throughout the period, we should have been able to see better results. And part of the reason, despite this pandemic, why the children were able to post close to better results, close to what was in the previous year, was because of, for the P7 class, they enjoyed that privilege of maintaining pupil-teacher ratio of 1 to 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Let me just get over to Ronald. Ronald, as we were thinking that we are beginning to open for schools to receive children, we were hit by the second wave, and this now meant that all those who are already in school get back home, and in the midst of all this, we now received the results. And as we speak right now, as we have this talk show, we have two supposed senior one classes that we even don't know when they are going to resume, when they are going to go to class. So, as a technical person, how would you look into this issue? Of course, we have P7 candidates who already know that they have passed and they are supposed to join senior one. In the previous years, we would have in January the results released, in Feb or March, senior ones join. So this time around, the picture is unclear. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, the question where do we go from there is will be determined by, first of all, our personal responsibility. If as Ugandans we become very responsible and observe the standard operating procedures that Ministry of Health has given to us. Here I am in the studio, I have removed my mask because we are seated at a distance and the person in between is wearing a mask. If all of us put on our masks, wherever we are, if we wash our hands with soap or sanitize, if we maintain social distance, if we really obey the lockdown rules as said by the president, we would curb down the rate of infection of this coronavirus, and the 42 days of lockdown probably will be the last lockdown, and we'll get back to school.
Mr. Robert, even in Rome, where we expect people to behave like the disciples of Jesus, people are not putting on masks. People got COVID. So, is that a reality? Is that something that we can achieve?
Well, the science has revealed that the best thing we can actually do is to mask ourselves. All other things we may ignore, but if you put on your mask, you will reduce the risk of, as I'm talking now, I cannot infect you. After that, you wash your hand with soap and you will be safe. But if we don't put on our mask, we continue to talk, we mix up and we do many things. That's where. But you can see, I'm sure you're using the name of Rome just biblically. But you can see because of the discipline of the Europeans, this COVID came, it hit Europe and America hard. And many people died. Hospitals were overwhelmed. There were no places for burial. But what are we seeing in Europe? People are playing football without masks.
Even in the midst of the COVID situation in Europe, children continue
to learn. So, for our situation as Ugandans, we're going to have like two sets of senior ones. The senior ones...
I don't think so.
Listen, let me...
Okay, let's have Robert and then I'll come to Raymond issue.
The first set of senior one, who were actually introduced to a new curriculum for lower secondary, that's where I am coming from. The senior one, the senior 5, amid this COVID, went to class, a new curriculum was rolled out. And immediately there was lockdown. But with the continued supply of home learning materials and the short openings which occurred, they were able to cover a certain period of time. But they still had some 2 terms to finish, isn't it? Which now this lockdown has put in at jeopardy for now. Now, there is now this current ones who have sat P7. They have passed. They are also going to senior 1. I'm sure your question is, now there are those who were in senior 1. There are those who have passed.
They are back home.
They are back home.
There are those who have passed and are also supposed to join.
And are supposed to join.
Yeah.
So what I think is going to happen, I want to give it with my personal experience. In 1997, 96, 97, we sat A-level. A-level used to be sat in March. But when we reached senior 5, our senior 6 was cut down by 1 term to correct, to correct sitting of A-level from March to December. It was actually 97, 98. So we lost 3 months, but we sat our A-level examination. I got 15 points. So the program that has been ongoing in school and online, like what radios have been doing, must have prepared these students of senior 1 to transit to senior 2.
Okay.
So that room can be created for our P7 who have just sat and received their PE results to go to senior 1.
Okay.
And I expect that one to also apply to other sets of classes.
Okay.
I'm sure that's why my brother Raymond was going to come in.
All right, Raymond, I was just going to come to you on that, because we were actually disagreeing.
I was disagreeing.
Yes.
I was trying to say, the way you have posed the question is the dilemma many people have.
Yes.
Many people are used to a fixed education system, but our country is going away from that fixed education system where going to the next class is determined by test. The guidelines the ministry has been issuing is very clear. Already, our challenge was this set that have just sat their PLV. They have already sat, they created a room for children who are in P6 to come from P7. The set that was in senior 4 sat, and they have created for a room for those who are in senior 3 to go to senior 4, and then those who are in senior 1 to go to senior 2, and these ones who are coming will go to fit where in senior 1. Ministry is working, government is planning that yes, with some of these classes, that's why the focus during the reopening was more on those classes that are about to finish. Ministry is focusing on trying to make sure that some of these classes still have some time along the way, and then we are going to bring some interventions. Already, the ministry is thinking around the accelerated education program as an intervention. The accelerated education program tries to make you to congest the curriculum for a shorter time, but making sure that the children pick the key competencies, skills, and the values that you want them to pick along the way.
Okay.
And through that, our children will not lose. They will still come out what we want them to come out. So really, one thing which I want to let our viewers to note is that yes, there is no crisis, there is no challenge as far as where the current senior ones who have thus completed their P7 will be. They will proceed with the education system normally. As my brother said, we need to discipline ourselves.
Okay.
We need to discipline ourselves, and I think COVID is about discipline. Yes, there are some cases where you might get them because of unforeseen circumstances, but I think if we discipline ourselves and if we try to adhere, we thank God that people like Professor Guang have also already discovered for us some cure. We thank God.
Is it a cure or it's a...
It's a cure. It's a remedy. We thank God Blue University is coming up, and we want to appreciate government for making sure that yes, they are supporting this initiative. And I think all of us Ugandans, we should embrace these initiatives. And I think very soon, COVID in Uganda is going to be history. Our children will go back to school and learn normally.
Okay.
Can I sit in on the issue of accelerated? That one has caught my attention. Bwana Noel,
yes,
you will remember that in the refugee settlement, Save the Children has been implementing accelerated education program. And some of the children who are passing in the refugee hosting communities actually come out of those schools. And this accelerated education program is where there is a complex curriculum. The curriculum for one term is learnt in 1 month. The curriculum for 3 years is learnt in 1 year. P1, P2, P3 is completed in 1 year. P2, P4, P5, 6, 1 year. So in three years, the child has completed P7.
Right.
So if that one is adopted to address this crisis, we are good to go.
All right, Ronald, I want us to continue that debate about the accelerated curriculum after the break. But there are so many questions running through my mind. As we continue to live in the new normal of COVID, is this the new normal of education that we are going to live through? What are the questions running in your mind? And how best can we sort out these issues? You are just watching The Pressure Point, and we'll be back shortly after this break.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Welcome back to The Pressure Point. My name is Noel, and tonight we are still continuing with the discussion on the primary living examinations, which were released on Friday. And as I mentioned earlier on, before the break, joining us in this discussion this very evening, we do have two senior educationists who are hailing from this particular region, discussing these results and also what this means for the people of West Nile, and also how this is going to impact the lives of these pupils who are supposed to go to the next stage, that is the secondary education, is what we are looking at in this discussion. And we thank all of you who are tuning in on the Rhino TV Facebook page, and also those who are watching us live on Rhino TV YouTube platform. And we are broadcasting live from Rhino TV here at Ochiba Coastal Town. Also, don't forget to look at the website for West Nile Web, where you can find wonderful information that you need around this particular region. Well, continuing with our discussion on the primary living examinations. Someone will be wanting to know the figures, maybe for instance. Ronald.
Yes, please.
How many first graders did we get in West Nile? In Speak for Arua district. On some platform, I saw someone say, at least we are in between the worst and the best.
Okay, thank you very much, Noel, and viewers. There is a summary of our performance as Greater Arua. When I talk of Greater Arua, the PLE 2020 was set as Arua district for the three counties which were formerly under Arua district.
Okay.
That is Terrebonne, that has become a district. Ivy Division, that has now marched and moved to Arua City, and the Vura County, which is now hosting Arua district. So these three counties that formed the Arua produced 260 first grades. The breakdown is as follows. Vura County, we had 22 in first grade. Terrebonne County had 42 in first grade. And the Ivy County, 196 in first grade. And this also had its implications. Can I go to the second grade? And second grade, Vura County had 670 in second grade. Terego had 1,743 in second grade. Aivu had 1,663 in second grade, totaling to 4,076. In third grade, Vura had 531 pupils who passed in third grade, 1,329 from Terego, 827 from Aivu. Then the last graded division was 4. In division 4, Vura had 378 and Aivu had 901. Terego had 901 and Aivu had 449. Ungraded, unfortunately, we also had children who were not graded. We had 234 in Vura, 667 in Terego, 240 in Aivu.
Can you just briefly explain that they were not graded? Why?
Failed.
Okay.
Yes, that is grade view. Failed. We also had candidates who registered but did not present themselves for the examination. We categorized them under Division X. So we had 51 from Vura, 261 from Terego, and 89 from Aivu.
Okay.
So this was the summary of the performance of the Greater Arua, which we actually even broke down into county level and percentages.
Okay.
Can I proceed or we'll proceed later?
We'll pick up from there.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Raymond, if you look at these figures, just as I was coming to the studios, I was watching the kind of excitement that many pupils were showing after they received their results and so on. What would you do if you, what did you first of all do when you saw these results? Did you clap your hands? Did you sing? Did you shout? Because I saw some people marching. Some people were dancing. What did you do as the principal city education officer?
The first one, or the first thing I did was did we improve? And if we improved, how did we improve? Was it quantitatively or qualitatively? And then looking at for example, ours, which is the Central Division, that is the Unaibu district number 80. We notice that if you compare the PLE result of 2020 with the one of 2019, our number declined. We declined both in our national ranking. In 2019, the Denarua municipality, which is now the Central Division, was number 45. But in 2020, we moved to number 60. So to me, this was bad enough. But as I said earlier, given the circumstances, I think this was a good one. But for example, our first graders reduced from 279 in 2019 to 251. This was a decline by about 28. And then in the second grade, it is in 2019, we had 1,400. This time we had 1,467. But one thing which impressed me was that the quality of passes improved. For example, unlike the previous year where our best candidate scored aggregate 6, this time the best candidate was able to obtain aggregate 5. And I think this is commendable.
We don't even have a 4.
We don't have a 4.
Wow.
We don't have a 4. 5 is good enough. We are moving towards getting 4. Let us have hope. I want to use this opportunity really to...
How many 4s do you think we will get in 2021?
I think in 2021 we can easily get about 20 4s.
Mr. Raymond, we'll bring you back to Rhino TV and ask you the same questions.
Yeah, but let's be very hopeful and opportunistic that as a people, we are capable of achieving this. Actually, I was at the point of saying I want to use this opportunity to speak to the people of this region that let's have faith in our systems here. A number of our children who will have made it are normally taken away. For example, people have been comparing private schools and the public schools. And people seem to be imagining that, the private schools are performing better than public schools.
Isn't it the truth?
You see, the truth is, I gave myself time to do some little research. And I found out that, a number of these children who excel in private schools are poached from public schools. After their foundation is well laid at the public schools, when the children approach P4, P5, they are now transferred. Actually, if you give yourself chance also to do some little statistics, some little research, if you go to majority of these schools, you will hardly find among those children who pass, those that started directly P1 in those private schools. Majority of them are brought along the way and from those public schools.
Mr. Rhino, just on this particular point that you mentioned,
Yeah.
You are a senior educationist in
Yes.
the region, and also you have managed schools.
Yes.
Previously, you've been the head teacher for Royal.
Actually, my record has not been broken.
Yeah, you've been the head teacher for Royal Hill Primary School
Yeah.
before you
Yeah.
got into the
Yeah.
the district. Now, if you look at this performance, and if you look at the rate at which these schools that were seen as really best public schools falling down, we're looking at those days when Royal Hill would give first grades. Those days Awindiri would give first grades. We would see a Raw Public, even a Raw Primary of recent had started giving good grades in the primary living examination.
That's true.
Would it be wrong to say that the quality of education in the public schools is dropping? That's why the people are taking them to the private schools. Because I know in discussions, the reality has been unveiled, especially issues of pupil-teacher ratio in the public schools.
Yeah.
In terms of facilities, learning takes place, the kind of environment in which learning takes place in the public schools vis-a-vis in the private schools, they do not actually equal.
Yeah, I want to respond as follows. Yes, yes, some of the facts, the points you have raised are true in our public schools. For example, maybe classroom ratios. They are very appalling.
Actually,
whereas the teacher ratios are fairly good.
At one point, someone told me in one of the schools, the teacher is teaching, the children are untying the laces of the teacher.
Yeah, that's true in a number of our schools, particularly in the lower primary. This also tells you about the demand. There is demand, but the facilities are not enough. That's a reality. Then the issue of pupil-teacher ratios, compared to what is happening in private schools, that's the reality. Because some private schools have pupil-teacher ratio of as low as one teacher teaching 10 children. And yet, due to the facts we all know, our public schools, one teacher now is teaching 1 to 50 in a number of our schools. That affects. But 50 could be good enough. People in our years will tell you that those days the pupil class teacher ratio was one teacher teaching 45. And government of Uganda is trying to move towards that, to making sure that we get 1 to 45. But government is so amorphous. There are so many things that government is trying to work on. But for me, I believe, given our situations, if our parents in the stakeholders in public schools gave attention to their learners, to their children, like the way they give attention in our private schools, we will be there. And part of the reason why within our central city districts here, why you see the results are fairly better than the rural district, is because there is some element of parents' commitment to ensure that they help their children to learn.
Okay.
So really our pupils will begin to, yes, we have a very huge demand. Not all of us can take our children to private schools. The public schools are also there. Actually, if all our children were to go to school, both public and the private schools are inadequate in our region.
Okay.
They are inadequate. So we really need to support them. Recently there was a debate on social media to name, say, Odumba Primary School after Professor Tawa Kikodri. And if Tawa is watching this program, people like you who went through such schools, you need to look back and try to see, come and inspire people that yes, I passed through this school, it has brought me an acclaim, and you should be able to say yes, because of what this school has done to my life, I am giving back to this school. And then people will be thinking of saying, yes, let's change the name from Odulua Primary School to Tikodi Primary School. I think if many of you, us who have been helped by these schools to excel, to reach where we are, looked back, we will improve our situation greatly.
All right, and Ronald, as we move closer to the end of this discussion, I want to pick your view on some of the issues that people raise. For instance, the level of investment in education in our country. Is it the right one? And now looking at the picture of the COVID-19 situation and also the lockdowns, how long are we going to continue doing this? One would expect that once we go into the lockdown, steps are taken. For instance, we know that if we get herd immunity, then we can be able to go about with our normal business of maybe the schools and so on. We know the lockdowns heavily impact on the study and the learning processes. So are these choices or decisions we are making the best that we should be taking for this time?
Well, the investment in education in our country, Raymond has just said the government is amorphous, and the government has a lot of hands to feed. In any ideal situation, right from last year, we would have expected, if our economy was thriving, that this trial of reopening schools for candidate classes would have created opportunity for the government, policymakers to assess the effect of having smaller classroom sizes, and eventually maybe heavily invest in infrastructure as we wait for the period of lockdowns to end, such that by the time maybe schools begin, we don't go back to the situations of one teacher teaching 120 learners, but there is a reduced teacher classroom ratio, reduced teacher-pupil ratio, and increased recruitment of the teachers, so that we can be able to provide this adequate education to our learners. And also, this COVID situation, I think, is teaching us lessons also to see to it that it is not all about academics. What can we do as we do investment in our education? What kind of new knowledge can we impart in our learners apart from books?
For instance, from the technical point of view,
yes.
What lessons have we learned from this lockdown, especially in terms of the education?
Yes, we have learned that education can actually be even outside the four corners of the classroom when resources are available. Now, many children were able to learn via Zoom. They were able to learn through radios and televisions, and now they've produced results. So the government should now rethink the provision of education from talk and chalk to innovating many ways of reaching out, and also to review the curriculum to provide some of the skills. We're doing skilling in Uganda, yes, but in the shortest time possible, we have realized that when even our children are home, they have actually learned much more than what they could be learning in school. These practical life skills have been acquired. So our school settings must also cater for those kind of categories of things, right from the primary, so that when we are bringing out a child, even if this child drops out or gets out in P7, this child is going to make meaning in the society and lives positively.
Okay, yeah, as we move towards the end of the discussions right here in the studios of Rhino TV, I would like to take last remarks from the guests that I do have here in the studio, especially on the discussions that we've had so far, and also how we move on from here, because many people have said once results are released like this, people lament. I read this on one of the platforms, that people lament, but towards the end, 1 or 2 weeks after, everything is lost and there's nothing done. Mr. Raymond, is that true?
Yeah, that is actually true. I always get a lot of that, and I sympathize with our people, because we are so much interested in a postmortem. No one does Lubara. We love dead person more than the person who is alive. When we still have opportunities to perfect the situation. For example, along the way, 7 years down the road, when children, 1 year down the road, when children are struggling, when situations in the schools are not in any perfect situation, nobody comes near the school system and says, yes, deliberately we want to strengthen this part, which we think is not working well, to make sure that our children perform better. For example, we are grappling with the feeding our learners in schools. They go hungry. One of the, by the way, biggest failures of this PLE is not our inability to get better children in first grade, but these numbers that are unable to complete the cycle. These numbers who register, who don't sit.
Some of them have gotten married.
Yes. These numbers who are ungraded. These numbers who in grade 4. These are our challenges. How do you make sure that we improve the situation?
What would be your...
COVID exposed us. I want the people who are watching us, let's become actors, not lamenters only. There is something you can do to improve a situation of a child. Small things. Some of you who have gone through schools, let's go back to our former schools and begin to do something small. You can add a brick to make that classroom better. You can improve the situation of a teacher by making sure that maybe you provide every term a bag of pencil for teachers to feed at school. And that will improve their motivation and it will make them to work better. So we need to begin to go back and start being closer to our schools, be closer to our children, and please let's take education as a collective responsibility. I have spoken in many situations that I'm a product of collective responsibility. My father did not value education, but there were people who thought I would be a useful person to community. And they took it upon themselves to make sure that they chased me to school. Some of them even picked me to go and stay with them. Some of them who are not even my tribe mates paid for me to be in school. So we need to go closer, and that encouraged me. So we need to go closer to our schools, our children, and begin to do something to improve the situation which our children are learning in this region. amo treyo barabara siteyo lepi ame tipi tualo like our future leria ame chiti chaku le tama me doti chi tualo where let's begin to fundraise to improve the situation in our schools, to make life better for our children here, other than taking the children away.
But Mr. Raymond, this is the responsibility of the government, and I believe
Yes.
you budget for these things.
We budget, but it's inadequate.
Why?
We have always seen
The
it.
question is
You
why?
see, I am not here to defend government. I am here to say, let's do something for ourselves. Governments will find us doing something for ourselves as a region. And that is when we will develop this city. We will be citizens in this city. And we will be citizens in this part of the country which we call ours.
Maybe for the record, apart
Yes.
from fundraising, what would you want the people to do before the government comes in?
That's what I'm trying to bring out.
Yes.
Our teachers are staying in appalling situations. Some of them don't have houses where to live in those schools, near those schools. The classrooms, you have said, the facilities, the learning environment is very poor. I am telling you, we could have recently in Yozuku Primary School, Aliga came with an initiative. And you know, it paid Yozuku from a slumber of over 10 years without first grade, was able to give first grade because Aliga came and he said, this is the school that brought me up. He roofed a classroom which had been blown off by wind for over 10 years. He came and encouraged children, gave them shoes, gave them books, gave them uniform, and you know, those children worked hard. That kind of initiative will do wonders.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Drani. As we wind up, what would be if you were to if you assume that the camera is the government, what would you say to the government? It's right in front of you.
The government must prioritize the education sector. We need a lot of investment in education in terms of infrastructure. The infrastructure is not on the buildings. Now that there's new normal, we want to see our classrooms modern with the ICT facilities. We want to see our teachers having all the 7 competences that a teacher is supposed to have, including ICT, according to the TRIPAC technology. We want to see the government that gets very close to monitoring and supervising education sector and putting the right people in the right positions so that we can deliver this Uganda to the 2040 vision, because education is the driver to all that this country can achieve. If we can have the best investment there, and if we can motivate our teachers, if we can actually even recruit teachers from the best grades, not those who have gotten these 3 U's. If we value teachers, if we value education, we can get back to South Korea and Germany.
Germany actually is one country that pays teachers more than any profession in the country. Even the same situation is in Singapore. So what is our own? How can we reach there is the biggest question that we're left with to answer as we end this discussion. But gentlemen, I must say that it has been a pleasure, it has been an honor having the two of you in the studios of Rhino TV discussing and dissecting issues of the primary leaving examinations that were released. And listener, I must say it was also a pleasure having you watch this particular talk show, The Pressure Point. Let's pick up from here yet again next week, Thursday, but continue to listen and to watch Rhino TV as we bring you wonderful programs on this particular TV platform. Have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.
Of Uganda is now here. Stand out and make your presence felt in West Nile through our website and across our digital and social media platforms. Be introduced to untapped treasures at the Economic Center of Uganda, Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Sudan through our expertise in marketing, research, advocacy. With our dedicated television platform, Rhino TV, West Nile Web is the one-stop hub for breaking news on everything political, cultural, tourism, entertainment, sport, music, and much much more. Visit our website at www.westnileweb.com.
West Nile Web. Discover opportunities. Live your dream.